that's that warmed up. Time for a service on the Tiger 955. Let's get stuck in. Okay, got her up, we've got her safe. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to get the oil draining while it's still warm before we do anything else, because I want to just cover why we're doing this. This is not a major service or a minor service, this is just our service. There we go. Right, while that's draining, now a lot of people are buying bikes at the moment at that 2-year-old stage. A lot of bikes are selling on the market right now when they've got 12 or 24,000 miles, and there's a reason why this happens, because at 12,000 miles, we're talking about Triumphs now, Triumph 955, and I believe it's the same for the later Tigers as well. You're finding that bikes are coming out in the market, they're brand new, people are riding them for a year, they're getting their first service done, which is practically free, it's £99 usually. They get the second service done, which is about, we did some research on Pen.
About 300.
About £300 for your 5,000 or 6,000 mile service. These are 6,000 intervals, but the 12 comes along and suddenly the bill goes right up. It really is expensive. It's about £500 for the bill on your 12,000 service, and the 24,000 mile service you're finding it's nearly £600 because there are some seriously long-term things to do. Things like changing the fork oil, changing the brake fluid, changing the coolant, all that sort of thing, purely because they are time sensitive. So 2-year-old bikes can actually be a bit of a false economy to buy. They're coming in at sort of about 3/4 of the price of a new bike from a dealer, and they'll give it a basic service, but will they definitely or not do the main service? So really a major service is one of the reasons why a lot of bikes sell at 12 or 24,000 miles, or just before. So when you're buying a bike, always look out for that. Check the mileage, check the major service isn't due, because it can be very expensive, and that hits you in the face when you've spent all your money on the bike. Do you neglect it or not? Obviously not, and that's the consideration. So with this, what we're going to try and do today is just get the basic servicing done, because there's nothing wrong with going to your dealer. There are things you can do and things you can't. And this is talking to you novices, new riders, riders who just do your own basic spannering at home, not the technicians and mechanics of you out there, because those of you, you know what you're doing. But in this sense, you can change oil, you can change filters, you can change the air filter, you can change the plugs, you can check the brake pads, you can check the chain sprockets, you can do all the pivots, all the lubrication and oil. You can do so much stuff. I would say 9/10 of your major service you can do yourself. Obviously things like putting the ECU system on the Triumph auto scan system, checking that your fuel injection is correct, balancing your throttle bodies, checking your valve clearances, all that kind of thing is possibly beyond the average mechanic. So if you can't do it, if that is beyond you, there's nothing wrong with doing everything else, going to your Triumph dealer and saying, look, I've done all my servicing, but can you just do valve clearances and balance the throttle bodies for me? And I reckon that would take about an hour. And what was an hour, Penny?
About £75, I think.
There you go. So with the VAT, you're going to get about £100 at the most for what is the finale of your major service, and the bike's then taken care of for another 12,000 miles, which for most people is at least a year, some riders even 2 years. So that's a good way to do it. So today I'm just going to cover the basics: oil, filter, spark plugs, air filter, and some check over stuff on the cycle parts which has to be done as well, and oiling pivots and swivels and stuff like that. And obviously if you've got a fully maintained bike and you do all the things that we advocate here on Delboy's Garage, then you won't need to do it all. It won't all be so bad as it might be if the bike had just been ridden for 12,000 miles. You should be looking after your bike anyway. Things like adjusting, lubricating your chain, tyre pressures, checking your tyres, all that. That's all part of your daily checks. So because it's your bike, unlike a technician that comes at a bike fresh, he's got to do everything, which is why the full major service is about 8 hours. That's why it's £600. It's not wrong, that's what it costs. But if you do all that stuff, you can really cut the bill. So let's get stuck in. The oil's drained there. Now it's gone down to just a trickle. Can you see underneath there, Pen? Mm-hmm. We've got literally just a little trickle left now. But I've done this in the past. You take the drain pan away, put the plug back in, you then take the drain plug out again, you'll get half a cup of oil. It takes a while to drain that down. So while that's draining down, we're going to take the oil filter and swap that as well. Okay. Right, you can use all manner of techniques to get a grip on this. You can get the little cap that goes on that undoes it, but I just use one of these, an old Scotch pad, gets a good grip on it. Or you can use the sticky tape method as in the video, and it usually comes undone. There we go, got it. The torque setting on that, if you're going to torque the filter up, is only 10 newtons. So honestly, you don't do them up tight. I'm just going to dump that in there for now. And yeah, I know I should be wearing gloves, so please don't tell me that in the comments box. Just ran out this morning when I checked Okay, we're going to let all that drain. You can see there's still a trickle coming out of the drain plug side, and that's coming out of the filter head adapter. So we're just going to leave that to drain. Right, next job is to drop the bike down, and we're going to do the spark plugs and the air filter. So that's the seat off and the tank off, and loads of fun and games. So let's get stuck into that. Right, there we are. Okay, seat off. Now when you take the tank off, if you have a tank cover, you obviously have to take that off as well. And this is one of the other things that as a customer you can do for your dealer. When you take your bike for service, if you take off as much bodywork as you can ride the bike with still, if that makes sense, so belly pans, tank covers especially, because they take a while to get off and back on again, and they're not going to want to do that. And if they do, they're certainly going to charge you. So things like removing tank covers, it's just time consuming. You can do it yourself. So if you're taking your bike in for a service, make life easy for yourself and finalise that cost a little bit lower by doing all this kind of manual stuff yourself. Common sense. Now just a little common sense practice when you're stripping loads of nuts and bolts off to take something apart, especially fairings. Just pop the screws back in the holes. It's a twofold thing. On plastic fairings, these have got a bonded nut on the inside, and if they're not hard enough they come out and drop out, and you've got problems for the future. But if you just put the screws in, it protects them a little bit and stops you losing them, which is really a pain in the backside. Same goes to the side panels and any other little panels on it. If you're going to take out loads of different screws, if it all gets a bit complicated, it's ever so easy if you just take them out. When you take the panel off, just put the screw back in so you know where it is when you come to rebuild it. Here we go. Make sure you undo the wires, saves you wrenching them out. Now there's hoses here which simply connect from the lowest point of this cheek right down to the lowest point of the tank, so they keep a fuel level, a lowest fuel level, so they don't have to be disconnected. They come off as they are. You've got two overflow hoses, just pull them off and tuck them out the way there. And almost ready to lift. Obviously it helps if you're going to do this to make sure that you've got less fuel. You don't want to take it in for service with a full tank. It just makes life really hard getting the tank off. It's a 22 litre tank, it weighs a heck of a lot when it's full up. So take it in when it's on reserve, it's a nice way to do it, or just above reserve, so it's a little bit lighter to handle for the mechanic in the workshop. Finally, two little bolts on the battery tray, so I'm going to disconnect the battery as well, because when we're messing around with spark plugs we should always disconnect the power supply. Obviously when you disconnect your battery, remember what we said before, earth first. Always disconnect the earth first and connect it last. God, this is a tight fit.
Reconnect it last.
What did I say?
Disconnect it
Yeah,
last.
I meant, you know what I meant. They know what I mean. You can get the thing out. It's kind of heavy and it's tight. There we go, she's out. That's it. Battery to one side. There we are. Right, now battery tray, as you can see on these Triumphs, is connected to the back of the tank. So that's just an Allen key.
This is what takes all the time.
This is indeed what takes the time and what costs the money, therefore, if you go to a workshop. It's all hourly paid, and at £75 an hour, the more you can take over yourself and doing this kind of thing, the more money you'll save yourself. And don't forget, just for extra fun, the company have seen fit to fit a bolt right in the bottom of the battery tray to hold it in place, as if with 2 kilos of battery sitting in it, it's going to fall out. There we are. You should just have then a wire connector in there, which just pop out. Here we go. Put that out of the way. Right, now we are pretty much free to get to, if you can see down in there, Ben, the back bolt for the tank, which is right down there under the battery. So they just like to make it about as hard as they can be. And incidentally, for everything that connects the side panels in this, you need these Torx heads, these little splined torque heads. So make sure you buy yourself a set. They're not expensive. If you don't have them, you end up using, or if you don't notice that it's a Torx bolt, then you end up inadvertently using an Allen key to do it. You can strip them out, and that just gets difficult then. Right, now we're at a stage where we've got the power supply to the fuel pump. Inside here is a fuel pump and a fuel filter, and that is the fuel supply there. That's the fuel supply out of the tank. And this side, so there's just that hose left connected, and this, which is the sender for the fuel gauge. So what I'm going to do is just connect that one little plug. All it is, as you can see, it's a little bayonet. You can see your dirty fingers. Hang on, you bugger. That's it, comes undone. Make sure that's free, because if you wrench the wires out of here, you've got a world of problems. You have to buy a new one. So that's it. All that's now connected to the bike is that fuel hose. Now, you can undo this clip here, split the hose and split the fuel supply, but I'm going to choose not to. What I'm going to do instead is a little trick I always do. I only need to get to the air filter. Simple as that. So I need to get to the back of the airbox to change the air filter. That's all this is all about. So I'm going to pop a big old towel across the bike. Now, although this is a bit of a daily donker, and I don't have to worry about the odd scratch. If it's your bike or a customer's bike or whatever, you're not going to scratch it. So the tank comes off. It's a bit of a bun fight. You've got the bolt down in the bottom done. You've got all these bits and pieces. There's a little, this main fuse which goes up in the side of the battery box. That's all disconnected and pulled out of the way. Any ancillary stuff like this that you've got in your bike, just tuck that down out of the way. Then you can lift the back of the tank up. Get your hands under the front. It's a bit of a bugger to get this tank off. Just lift it so this lip here comes free of this step in the frame. Then you can get your fingers under it. And on the front, being careful not to scratch your tank, your hand under the front, and just lift it free. It's just literally where it hugs around the airbox. Now, if you look underneath now, you see that all that's connected, if I can stand it on there, is this. Just this fuel hose to the fuel rail. So I'm not going to disconnect and disturb that, because I don't have to. You're given enough slack. You can run it like that. Pull the tank back, and without pulling on it, there. Stand the tank, literally. It's quite heavy that, because like an idiot, I didn't leave it on reserve. That is practically full. You can now get that out of the way and get to what you need to get to here, the top of the engine and everything else, to do the air filter and all the other bits and pieces. And that is the casing we need there to do the air filter next. Here we go, last one, right. Comes out like a cartridge, and what you've got is crappy rubber and paper filter. Now you can buy these, obviously disposable, don't believe in them, don't like them at all. That's not the answer. I think they clog up quite quick, and when you're done with them you have to throw them away, which is quite expensive. So that'll go in the bin, and what I'm going to put in it instead is a good old K&M filter. We all know these, we all love them, they're fantastic. This was £29, Ben? 29 minute, 30 quid.
Yeah, it was on offer.
About £30 on offer, and the beauty of it is you buy it one time, that's it. You can put it on and forget all about it. When the time comes to replace it, you just wash it instead, which I think is just a better way to go. It's a more sensible way to go, but do make sure they come with a little sticker there. There's stop, do not throw away. And that you go on the airbox, because if a future technician in the future goes ordering a filter, then they know that they can just wash it out. I would show you how to wash these out, and in a future service I will. There's a certain technique in water like that that washes them all out and you dry them, but that is brand new and it goes straight in. So I'm going to do that. It goes in the little cartridge exactly like the standard factory one did, like that, and that's it. Simple as that. You just drop that in. Drop it in. It just needs an absolute, you fit it in all the way around. You get a little bit of a squeeze fit, because this ramp here, as it were, as you push it in, this pushes this soft rubber edge against the back of the airbox and forms a seal. So it is That's it, a little bit of a push in, and that then gives you a nice complete seal, so no air's leaking into the engine that isn't filtered. And all we've got to do now is just screw that on, and that job is also done. Right, taking the airbox off. We need to get the airbox off to get the plugs replaced, because you'll see in a minute, the plugs live under individual coils underneath and you can't get to them at all without taking the airbox off first. So looking at the airbox, it looks a bit tricky and scary. It's actually not. There's just 2 bolts. 2 bolts back here. Just take these off. They're only 10mm. And they shouldn't be too tight because they're into a little brass thread. There you go, little brass thread. Just said don't drop the bolts. There it is. And once they're off, the whole thing is literally free to remove. But there's a few things connected to it. One is a drain hole. Obviously, airboxes contain hot and cold air, gases, oily residue. So you need a drain hose, and it's this. Once they're out, you can lift the airbox up a little bit. You notice here, see, can you get the torch right on that pen? That one there. Here there's a hose, and you just need a pair of pliers to squeeze that clip together. Can't see a thing. Can I just have that? There we are. And move the hose down out the way, and then disconnect that. That's it. That's it, that just comes out then, that's all it is. It's a drain hole for anything that comes out of there, all that residue. That's a mixture of oily residue and water condensation, so it's nothing to worry about. Don't go worrying thinking you've got salad in there or mayonnaise. That little airline breather comes off there. And then there's one more, just this side. Now this is a little bit of fun, this. You need a small screwdriver. It's a little tiny one, or a fingernail, just under there. Can you get down? And all we need to do is take that wire. There's a little wire thing here which literally just pulls out like a little staple. Sometimes you need a screwdriver for it, or something to hook in it. There you go. Once you hook that out of the way, that plug just comes out. Okay, simple as that. Right, now the airbox will be withdrawn. Careful, it's in there. And all it does is pulls off the back of the throttle bodies like that. Just pulls clean off the back. And then feeds out the front, and that's it. Airbox removed, simple as that. Now we can get to these and replace the spark plugs which live underneath. Right, the next thing is these. Now you may not have seen these before if you're doing this for the first time. You may be used to having 2 coils on there, or 1 coil, and then 2 HT leads going to HT caps. Well, all these are basically is they're independent coils. Each one of these is a separate coil for each plug. It's very much the way it works on fuel injection motors, especially in cars and that now. So quite simply, I've done the outside too to speed things up a bit. I'm going to show you how we do it. All you do is take the lead off. Let's just lift that up, pull it back so the lead's out of the way. It just sits there and boogies on its own. And then with a T27 star drive, okay, or Torx bit, not an Allen key, just pop in there and crack those. They're not tight. All of these are nice light settings, and you can look them up. You can go onto the internet, and internet forums like Triumph Rat have got downloadable PDQs. Are they called? PDQs? I can't remember. Like PDFs. PDFs. PDQ's pretty damn quick, isn't it? So to get a PDF document, you can just download it to your computer and print it off and stick it on the wall of your garage. There's all your torque settings. It's ever so simple. And all you do is take these off, 2 little screws. They come with a little bit of Loctite around them, so they're quite safe, and they will go just back in. Now these are to be changed every 12,000 miles. You can push them. These have had 24,000 miles, so these have probably been a bit neglected because this has never had plugs. And there it is. That's all it is. It's a coil pack there coming down to an HT cap, and that just goes straight on top. Now in your toolkit you'll have one of these. If not, you can buy them from anywhere. That's your plug spanner. So pop that down on top of your plug, and then all I do with that is just pop a socket straight on top of that, and I can remove it quite easily. And of course, using a socket means afterwards I can pop a torque wrench on it to do them up, and that will just undo, come clean out there. Now this, because it's a proper plug spanner, it will bring the plug out with it, and this is a 26,000 mile plug, and there it is. Tiny little bit lean, but then that's how they run these days. I've just got a plug gapper. You check what we're reading on that. Should be between was it 8 and 9, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's up at about 9.5mm. There's 8mm, 8.5, 9, 9.5. Gap's a little bit much, and that's just where the electrode's probably worn down, sort of just by sort of being spark arrested by its job. So that's a little bit of a big gap. We'll take that out of the action. That's dead. I'm going to check that against the other two. I've done the other two. I'm going to put the 3 together in a minute and do a comparison. Here's a new one. Before you put them in, just give them a little check. Put them on a gap. A feeler gauge will do the job, whatever. And that's going in at 8. It should be between 8 or 0.8 and 0.9. So there's, wriggle it round. That takes you to 7. Now the consistency you're looking for is cheese. Knife into cheese. And we all know that, don't we? So pop it on there. So it's nice and tight, and when you pull it off, it's like a knife in cheese. That's the feel. And that is literally 0.7mm. And that's right in the middle of 8 to 9, 0.8 to 9. So that'll go in there. New plug in. Drop it in a hole. Screw it into place. Now these I have a torque set, and they're a crush washer. But unlike the old days with your old bikes, what you used to do back in the day was take your plugs out every now and again and clean them. You don't really do it anymore. They stay in there. Don't disturb them. Honestly, to take the tank off, the airbox off, the seat off, everything off. It's been quite a bun fight to get into these plugs, so you're not going to be taking them out every Saturday to clean them. So in that sense, once they're in, you can leave them in there. Simple. And all we do now is take torque wrench, because you leave them in, you can torque them in. Now they're a crush washer, and they need to be 18 Newton meters, no more than that, and you'll feel 18. Just looking for that to click once. As you're crushing the washer in, that's the amount of crush it needs to seal, and it will stay that way. There, that's it. Not going to do any more. Don't do it twice. That's your lot. There's your plug in, and we simply take coil pack, put the coil back on, slide it down in, line up the holes. Come in there, Pat. Got the torch.
I can see.
That's all we've got there. There's the 2 holes. Line up the 2 flanges there, and if you do one at a time, you won't have a problem knowing which way to go, because you've got the other 2 as examples. Push that back down, nice rubber seal, and then 2 screws. You can, if you want, re-Loctite these, but honestly, you saw the mess that's on top of this lot. You got the airbox on top there, the tank, they ain't coming out, they ain't going to go anywhere. You just wriggle them around till the threads catch. There we are. And they'll go in under a little bit of resistance. They don't roll in under finger tight, and that's because they've got that little bit of Loctite in them. Now there's a torque setting for everything on your bike. And these is down in single figures, so I'm not going to bother with it. They just go up wrist tight. Let's get that in there. So jiggle them about till you get that thread to catch. That's it. And they are quite stiff, as long as they don't go completely stiff. If you can do them up by twisting on that 1 inch of a tool, then they're fine. If you have to lift any harder on that, you might be crossing them, so be a bit careful. And put it in the other end, and we'll just nip them up. And that is 3 plugs replaced. Simple. 1, 2. Now wrist tight. I often say wrist tight, and all I mean by that is simply hand and thumb. There. The tightness, you feel each one about the same. Don't lean on them. That's all you need. That's it. And then take the plug, pop the plug back in, snap, make sure it's on, give it a tug on each one, make sure they ain't going anywhere, because it's a bit of a bun fight to get back into them. Okay, now at this point, this is where your mechanic or technician in a workshop can go balancing your throttle bodies, that sort of thing. But this is a basic service. This is at the beginning. This is a simple basic service. We'll replace the air filter that goes in the airbox. We'll replace the spark plugs, replacing the oil and filter, and that is going to conclude pretty much this service. So I'm just going to dress this back up, put it all back together. It's probably about another hour or so's work to rebuild all this now, and then I can do the last little bit in the next video. So let's get this built back up, and we'll end it on it. Right, airbox lives on. Easiest way to describe it, there's a little clip, a little bracket at the front that just slips into that part of the airbox. You'll see yourself, when you take things apart, just pay attention to the way they come apart. Quite often you can work out how they go back together. It's very straightforward. There it is, little clip under there. And it's a jiggle and a poke and a twist, how all these things fit on. And it's a just take your time, get everything back to how it should be. Okay, you push in. The important thing to ensure is that you push the 3 rubber bell mounts down onto the throttle bodies, nice and smoothly, and none of it's tucked in or folded in. So make sure that when they all go down fine. A little bit of grease around them works as a treat, because it also it aids the seal. And they're only held on just by a spring. There's no of the old screw ups or anything like that, or the clips used to screw tight. You don't have that on these, they just push on. And once they push in place, there are 2 bolts in the back there that go into the brass threads on the airbox and bolt the airbox in. So you know that if they locate nicely and easily, finger tight like that, without any issue, that the whole airbox is lined up correctly, because those holes are quite snug and they'll just do up. This is quite important because obviously all of the plugs that were on it have to go back on. So that one's next. It just goes on like that, as far as it will go. And there's a little clip. You get under there? That just fits on in each of the tracks either side. It's a little bit fiddly, as you can see. Oops, a bit too far out. There it is. Nice and snug. And that stops that coming out in place. So all the hoses, drain hose, air breather, plug, airbox done, back on, nice and snug. That's it. Okay. Fun begins again. Remember, all we left connected was the fuel supply, and that hose is under here. That's this big hose here. So just make sure when you put it back in, that's that hose, you've left that connected, and as it goes back in, nothing must be pinched or kinked. Lift up a little bit at the front, back will drop in now. Kind of snucks down quite neatly on top of the airbox. With your hand in there, before you go any further, have a little feel. These hoses at the side, these little feed hoses that go here between the rear cheek and the front cheek of the tank to bridge that gap, they mustn't be trapped like that could be. So just make sure when it goes back down, it comes up into the space. A little bit of a bun fight, but there we are. Nice and out the way. Just making sure that nothing's trapped and that it all moves, jiggles about freely. Okay, it's got plenty of room to move around. If you look down in there at the hole that bolts into there, you can see that moves around quite a lot. So that's there. There we are. Pop in the plug for the fuel sender. If you're not sure of any of these, just label them up. Get a bit of some masking tape and just do them up. Put a bit of masking tape around, put fuel sender, whatever you feel, whatever works for you. Just line it up so the rubber bung goes down in the hole first, and then do it up. And literally just do this up, just finger tight. It's kind of into a soft thread. Don't forget to bolt down the back of your tank. Little overflows. Make sure the overflows go on, because if anything does overflow, it's going to roll all over this instead of under the bike where it needs to be. Quite important. Right back through. And that's the power feed to your pump. Right. It goes in easier than it comes out, that's for sure. Right. Okay, always connect live first and earth second or last. When connecting any battery terminal, whatever it might be, you always make sure that accessory cables like this, which is for Penny's heated suit, goes on last. The actual bike's earth must go to the battery first, then everything else goes on top of that, so you get the best possible connection to the actual vehicle. There we go. The tank comes with a mixture of these Allen bolts and Torx bolts. Don't know why, but just make sure that whichever one you're using, use the right tool, because the other tool will mince them out. Okay, this is all up. That's our quantity of sump oil. Just take a little look at your oil. There's no sparkly silver bits in it. There's no nasty lumps or water in it or anything like that. And it is black, not kind of biscuit coloured or beige, which would indicate a head gasket leak because you've got water in it. That's just sump oil. Right, let's get out of the way. Right, my little fave trick, poke on a little bit of blue Hylamar. I like blue Hylamar because it never sets. It stays like a thick, sticky substance forever. But I also advocate not to put too much on, because you don't want any blobs of this stuff running around in your oil, because it will bung up the oil strainer and cause oil starvation. I'm just putting a little bit on, which will be worked as you screw it in. It'll be pushed down to the base and it will seal around there. Pop a new crush washer on, always pop a new one on, and just pop that in. And that's a little 12mm head. And as that winds up in, I can see it already. The Hylamar is being pushed down around the bottom, and it's gonna go between the crush washer and the sump. There we are. It all squashes out. That's all good. Bring that out of the way. That's nice. And what we're going to do is just pop it up. Now, this is a torque setting you really must adhere to. Whatever you think you can do up stuff. I know I've probably not always done it in the past, but this is 24 Newton meters. Some stuff on the net says 25. I always go with the least. There we are. That is it. No more than that. That's it. 24. It's all it needs. Any more than that, and you're stressing the steel against the alloy. And if you strip the alloy in this casing here, really, honestly, then you're into helicoils and all sorts of repairs which you don't need to make. That will not come out. It says 24. Do it to 24. That's fine. Done. Excellent. Right, let's put the oil filter in. Okay, we have on this bike a filter that goes in uppermost like that, as opposed to the front or side fit that you get on Japanese bikes or Harleys that way. This goes up underneath, so you have the benefit that you can fill that up with oil before you put it in, which is all good. So down here, just for this job, I've chosen some Super Purolene DX4 1040 synthetic, and that is semi-synthetic, and that's absolutely fine for this bike.
There are other brands available.
Yeah, that's it. Delboy's Garage does not endorse any given one brand. So what we'll do with that is just fill it up with oil before we poke it in, which makes it a bit easier. And some obviously round the seal on the top, helps it to go in. And it doesn't have to be full to the brim, just enough so that it doesn't starve when you start the engine. That's it. You see that in there?
Yep.
Kind of just that. It's not even that full. It's got, I reckon, it's up to about there. And that's fine for now. Just pop that up in and spin it up. And penny pit stop will give you the torque setting on this, which was?
Which was? Now I need to double check. 10.
10, right. 10 Newton meters. Honestly, folks, 10 Newton meters. That's nothing. And all I do, because if I haven't got one of these caps that fits on and does it up, and there is no way you can get to that. It is kind of flush. All I've done in years and years is use a Scotch-Brite and just get hold of it. Press upwards, and you'll feel at a certain point it will stop. It'll turn until it just stops, and you know you've reached base. But honestly, 10 Newton meters is nothing. That will not come out, and you'll soon see if you're diligent with your bike maintenance, you'll see a little leak, you'll spot a little dot underneath the bike. I always do that whenever I leave my bike, anywhere, anytime. Have a little glance underneath it. When you come back to your bike after a period of time, again, have a glance underneath it, check there's any little dots of oil. You might get a bit under the chain, a bit of chain lube from your Scott oiler, fine. If you're getting a dot of oil under here, check it, make sure. If you're getting smoke coming, remember you've got your exhaust here. If this is leaking any oil out, it'll go on your exhaust and it will smoke. So read the signs, read the bike, she's talking to you all the time. A little check on that. That's it. That's it, done up. Excellent. Right, oil, filter. Now let's fill the oil up. Always upright. Check your oil in an upright position, not on the side stand, because it will be leaning away from the dipstick, so you'll end up filling it up too much. And all we've got to do now is put in, I always put about 3 litres in, then start checking it, 3.5. Meanwhile, now you want some music and some flowers, don't you? Picture of some grass or something. Right, come back in a minute, we're going to top this up first. And because we pre-filled the filter, there's no need to be too careful, that will be the correct amount. Just measure it. When you measure it, obviously bike upright like I said, and put the dipstick in, and that's it. Don't screw it in, because that's for storage purposes. You put it in, that's the dipstick, pull it back out. And the measurement on the end here, that gap from there is 1 litre. So if it's down to here just touching, it's 1 litre or a quart low. And that's where it needs to be, at the top there, and certainly never any higher than there. So that's the full level, is that little bit, and all I'm going to do is poke it in. And we are halfway up the stick. So I'm going to pop just a little bit more in, and then obviously run it up. Once you've run it up, then you can check it after that. Should take 3.3 litres, but it's never accurate because you never get all of it out. There's always a residue in there of oil. Okay. Right, she's ticking over, running beautifully now. I'm going to check the oil level, dress everything back up, put the tank cover back on, which is going to be a bun fight, and seats and everything, and we can call this engine service done. So let's get stuck in. And tools out of the way. So, and there we are. That is it. Right, so that's pretty much it. We're going to call that done for this one. This video has been about the engine service. All I wanted to do was get the main part of the engine service done, so that when you buy a bike you can get that done yourself. It really isn't difficult, is it? It's an engine oil and filter, pretty straightforward. You can do that any time. Replace all 3 spark plugs, they have to be done every 12,000, and the air filter as well, which is very important. You saw the state of it, it was minging, so that has to be replaced too. Now there are a couple of other things with 12,000 mile service that I haven't done. It does say to replace the fuel filter. Now this is England, we're very lucky, our fuel is very clean here in England. I'm going to leave it to the next 12,000. I've done this many times. I've had this experience with Harley Davidsons. Harleys have a fuel filter inside the tank, and you can normally go 25,000 miles before you replace that, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. That fuel filter is going to stay in there now, that's fine. I'm going to put it in next time. If you want to do it as per your servicing schedule, then you do that by all means. It's very simple. You take that plate off the left hand side, inside there is the pump, the filter and a sock. You replace the filter, 2 clips. It's reasonably easy, and I will be making a video of that when that time comes. The other little things, there's some periodicals we've got to be doing, and they're going to be coming videos, coming soon. We've got brake fluid, front and rear to replace. It's about 3 years old, so it definitely needs replacing. That's going to be quite soon. I've checked the colour of it. It's kind of medium yellow. It's not black or anything, but that is going to get replaced because it still gets a bit of water in it. Other things like the fork oil, going to replace the fork oil because the front does tend to slam a little bit over bumpy roads, so I'm definitely going to replace the fork oil, and that will be another video again in a little while. We've just got to get all these done. Got to fit them all in. Now today, this is what we're going to do. We're going to call it done here. There is more to this service than me, so I'm going to do a little bit more work to do yet. I want to take the brakes off, check them, check the pads, lubricate them, lubricate all the pivots, spindles, check the forks. This is the sort of thing your service technician does in a main 12,000 mile service, which is why it costs so much, because it takes so long. You saw how long it takes just to get to the spark plugs. That's what you're paying for, the time of a trained technician to dig their way into those plugs. It actually takes a matter of seconds to replace the plug. It's just getting to it and getting back out of it, much like modern cars. So we're going to leave this here, I'm going to call this video done. We're going to make a part 2, which we'll upload on Wednesday. Okay?
Yep.
So midweek you'll get part 2, which will complete the service, but for now this is your engine service, which you can do when you buy yourself a bike, save an awful lot of money. Okay? Thanks for watching, take your ride safe. I hope that helps you. See you next time.